It's great to be here, Vinny.
Well, we actually have been seeing you, but you haven't been seeing us, so now we're all together. All right, we've been waiting for this moment so long. First of all, OJ Simpson is your client in this case. You do have many other clients, but this is the one that everyone is talking about right now. And Yale, going into this case, you guys seem so confident after this preliminary hearing, oozing with confidence. Is there a chance that maybe you guys are a little overconfident right now?
Well, it depends on what the bellwether is for overconfident. The reason I was exuding confidence was, first of all,
oozing.
Oozing confidence was I knew that going into this, that these witnesses had not told the district attorney's office the complete truth. I mean, we had their statements, and we were reading them, and we were, like Walter Alexander, for an example, when he told David Roger and the police that he was a real number, we were just flipped out, and it was as if they hadn't done their own homework and their own investigation to find out the character of these people and what they were really doing. And the issue, of course, isn't things like whether or not he's a pimp. The fact is that he lied to the police, and he lied in his sworn statement, and this is an official proceeding. It should be taken very seriously by all. People should not be motivated by money, selling things to tabloids, selling tapes to, people like Harvey Levin at TMZ, because it's a court of law, and my job is to make sure that everybody plays by the rules, and you cannot lie to law enforcement, and you cannot lie when you walk into a courtroom. And that's why we were confident, because we knew that the DA's office and law enforcement had not been told the truth.
They had no idea. It looks like they, it was an interesting moment. I've never seen cross-examination like that. It's unbelievable. But Yale, here's the problem that many of us are talking about, is that, yes, a problem for the prosecution. You tear apart the credibility of all these guys and all the things that they're doing. But aren't they all involved in this case because they're all somehow connected to your client, OJ Simpson? He's the one who brought these guys to the room. He's the one who's doing deals with the Beardsleys and Riccios of the world and bringing McClinton and Alexander along with him to this room and making it part of this case. It's your client, OJ Simpson, who is the common denominator in this whole thing.
Well, I don't think O.J. Simpson is the common denominator. I think the common denominator was Tom Riccio. And I think it was clear that Riccio had contacted Simpson. Riccio is the one who said, listen, these guys are trying to sell stuff that was stolen from your house. These guys are trying to sell stuff that was stolen, from your mother's personal possessions. And that's what we're really talking about. I got, finally, after the hearing was done, I got to listen to some of the commentary on the case about whether it had to do with stolen memorabilia, and it doesn't. It's not about memorabilia, and I asked Mr. Riccio that on the witness stand. This is a case about personal property that was stolen from O.J. Simpson's home. These are pictures of him and his mom, him and his dad. J. Edgar Hoover had taken a picture of him.
Why is he so concerned about a picture of him with J. Edgar Hoover? That's got to be one of the most curious facts in this case to me.
Lisa, these are personal mementos. I mean, the whole idea that O.J. Simpson would break into a hotel room to steal pictures of himself that he signed or footballs of him that he signed is ludicrous, because he gets offers to sign his pictures and his Hall of Fame footballs all the time.
Okay, so Yale, we got the story from Riccio on the stand that this thing was planned weeks in advance, that Riccio actually mentioned it to the FBI. The FBI gave him no help. Why didn't OJ just bring a civil suit against this guy? Why didn't a private attorney like you just help him recover the stuff in a way that was a little less violent?
Well, first of all, I didn't know about it, so to answer that question. And the second thing was, I think it's more than just reporting it once. I think that, Riccio testified that he went to the local people in California, which is where this stuff was originally located. They gave him no help. Then he took a second shot at law enforcement, and he went to the FBI, and they gave him no help. So then he contacts, O.J. Simpson. He says to O.J., listen, these are your personal mementos. These guys are trying to sell it. Why don't we go get it back? They'll probably end up giving it back to you. And that is the scenario under which they went to that hotel room.
All right, and we have a soundbite of the phone message that O.J. Simpson left for Thomas Riccio right after this incident. Take a listen.
O.J. left me a a message. And on that message, he said something to the effect of, well, you got the message. He said, they're saying there's guns used. Why are there guns? There was no guns. You didn't see no guns. There were no guns.
Hey, Yale, is OJ going to take the position at trial that there were no guns in that room?
Well, quite frankly, Lisa, I'm not sure. I mean, I am miffed.
Did you ask him?
That, well, hold on. I am miffed that Tom Riccio said under oath that there was a very good chance that OJ Simpson did not see guns in that room. I am also miffed that when you examine the tape, I mean, and keep in mind, I mean, everybody was recording everybody else here, which is very rare that we see in these criminal cases.
Well, McClinton and Riccio were recording, right?
Right, and there's no mention of guns. Nobody says put that gun away. Nobody says stick them up. Nobody says you're going to hurt somebody. So I am, you know, thoroughly investigating whether or not there really were guns in the room, or this was just something that was done to sell extra magazines and make money.
Didn't OJ say right after?
Hold on, Lisa.
Didn't OJ say there were no guns right after the incident?
Hold on. I just want to add one other thing, Lisa. Al Beardsley, when he called the 911 operator, which is the event that started law enforcement, the law enforcement investigation here, called 911 and said, I have just been robbed at gunpoint by OJ Simpson. I got him to admit on the witness stand that that was a complete fabrication. And we know, and it wasn't only my cross-examination. The following morning, he told Matt Lauer at no time did OJ Simpson have a gun. So
well, he could be robbed at gunpoint without OJ having the gun. Nobody says OJ has a gun, right? It was McClinton and Alexander who had the gun, so I don't think that's a contradiction.
But that's not what the initial story was. The initial story was that I was robbed at gunpoint by OJ Simpson. The initial story was not I was robbed at gunpoint by people I don't know and OJ was in the room. The initial story was I was robbed at gunpoint by OJ Simpson. We now all know that that was an inaccurate statement.
Well, have you listened? I mean, I've listened to that tape tons of times. I played it on my radio show, and we played it over and over. And it sounds like there's one part of this tape where someone makes a reference to hitting someone over the head with a gun. So I would take a closer listen. It's difficult to play on television because of all the beeps that have to go in. But on the satellite radio when we play in the morning, it sounds like it. So there are some people that have listened to it and heard that. Have all these phone calls been transcribed and agreed upon what exactly is said by both parties here?
No. The transcriptions are a mess, and because what has occurred up to this point is the transcriptions have basically been done by law enforcement. The tapes are very difficult to hear. We've got all of the original digital recordings that have been turned over to us now with experts and people who are professionals at transcribing these things, and we'll see what they hear and what what the audio people come up with.
Well, we do have this fact here. Let's take a listen now to Walter Alexander and his direct testimony talking about guns and O.J. Simpson. Take a listen.
There really wasn't much of a plan. You know, he just pretty much said he wanted us to bring the guns just in case anything happened and to look tough.
You've got two men who say that they had guns there that night, Yale Galanter. Do you think a jury's not going to believe these guys, that they're going to admit to bringing guns into a room if they didn't really have them?
Well, I think you have to take a step back. I mean, the thing about McClinton and Alexander is that they wanted to videotape the whole thing to sell it to a tabloid. I mean, that's what their testimony was. You know, they go to this spy shop, they try and hook up all this equipment. So what were they doing? What was their real motivation?
Do you think from the beginning they were going to double-cross OJ?
Absolutely they were going to double-cross OJ, and they admitted that on the witness stand. And when I say double-cross, I mean they certainly had a monetary motive to buy this equipment, videotape or audio tape it, and sell it to the tabloids. That's what Mr. McClinton's testimony was in court. So I mean, their character is certainly suspect. Their motivation is certainly suspect. You know, when you talk about the guns, like McClinton testified that O.J. Simpson told him to pull the gun out. There's only one problem with that theory. All the other witnesses say that O.J. Simpson was the last person to walk into the room. They don't even put him at the threshold of the door, and the other people who were at the threshold of the door never heard that comment made. So, you know, where does it come from? It's not on tape.
I have a quick question for you, Yale. How about this? How about O.J. Simpson doesn't see the guns, but the guns are there? Is he not guilty?
I don't think that O.J. Simpson committed any unlawful acts, and unless the government can prove beyond the exclusion of a reasonable doubt that he told people to bring weapons, that he authorized the use of weapons, and that weapons were used at his direction, he didn't do anything wrong. This case in my opinion, starts and stops with who is the rightful owner of that property, because clearly, if it was O.J. Simpson's property, and these people, at least Mr. Beardsley, who already has a past for dealing in stolen property, was trying to sell his stolen property in the open market, O.J. Simpson had a right to recover.
So is O.J. going to say he owned the alleged victim's cell phones, sunglasses, hat, and Joe Montana lithographs?
Okay, Lisa, in order to steal something, you've got to have an intent to permanently deprive, and I think it's crystal clear from all the witnesses that O.J. Simpson kept saying when people were bagging up other people's cell phones and hats and sunglasses, give it back, don't take that, that's not what we're here for, and that's clear on the tape. At one point, one of the witnesses even said they heard O.J. Simpson say, don't worry about it, we're going to leave all the stuff at the front desk. So clearly his intent, and that's what this case rises and falls on. Why do you take the guy's cell phone and leave it at the front desk?
I
don't know why these guys did what they did, Lisa. I have no idea. I can only speak for Mr. Simpson, and I know that Mr. Simpson certainly did not break into a hotel room with the intent to steal somebody's cell phone.
All right, so brass tacks.
And I don't think jurors would ever believe that.
So brass tacks, if you could get a plea deal with the state of Nevada where O.J. pleads guilty to something and gets no jail time, would you recommend that?
Lisa, I cannot discuss with you first of all, what I discussed with Mr. Simpson, and second of all, any of our conversations with
hypothetical.
Mr. Roger,
Would you recommend it?
Would that be a good deal?
O.J. would be something to recommend, wouldn't it, hypothetically?
It really, first of all, it depends on what it was. You know, when I look at this case, and I analyze it, and I say to myself, what crime did O.J. Simpson commit? I can't come up with one. He was invited into the room, so it certainly wasn't a burglary, certainly wasn't trespassing. Robbery is the unlawful taking of another's property. If I'm correct, and he was the rightful owner of this property, he was entitled to get it back. In all other states, other than Nevada, it's a specific intent crime.
Okay, so why is he screaming and yelling on the tape and laced with profanities and saying, nobody's going to leave this room, and I'm leaving the profanities out? Sit down, don't go anywhere, nobody's leaving this room. Why does he have to do all that if it's just his property?
He's angry. I mean, he is clearly angry that these people end up in a Las Vegas hotel room with heirlooms that O.J. Simpson has been looking for the past 10 years. And he's angry, and he uses, you know, the F word more than I think is appropriate. But you know, it's very difficult to play Monday morning quarterback and say, why do people say what they did? But I don't think it's real important as to what he said and the curse words that he said. It's what he doesn't say. He doesn't say, you know, pull your gun out, stick that gun in his face, you know, let's take it by force. That's not what he's saying. You know, the other people, Beardsley and Frommong, are saying, take the stuff, Mike took it, we weren't involved. I mean, what is that all about? They are indicating that they had knowledge that this stuff was not obtained through the lawful stream of commerce. And that's really what I think the case is going to boil down to.
All right, O.J. Simpson's getting ready for another day in court. And up next, we'll have much more with his defense attorney, Yale Galanter. Don't go anywhere.